start from core Java and then we'll move to other concepts.
Sure.
So, what is the difference between comparator and comparable?
So basically, comparator, when we use, so basically, okay, so if we have a default sorting, then we should go for comparable, and if you want some customized logic, then we should go for comparator, because there might be like a sorting of some employee list of employees, and comparable won't be able to do it because comparable don't allow us to write our logic to sort it. In that time, we should go for comparator.
Mhm. What is the importance of hash code and equals method?
Okay, so basically internally the hash map, how it works is, and how it finds the number, indexes to placed object. It depends on the hash code and equals method. But if we are sending some like custom defined objects, like maybe employee class, list of employee classes, then hash map don't know, like based on what exactly it has to create a hash code of it, and based on what it has to check the equals. So that's why, in order to basically place the object, like we can say that properly into the hash map.
Okay. So, in which scenario we should go for interface rather than abstract classes?
Interface rather than abstract classes. Okay. So there are like advantage over the abstract class of interface is like interfaces we can implement multiple, but our class we will not only one class we can implement extend. Sorry. So if we have like multiple inheritance, we want to implement and extend multiple classes, then obviously we should go for interfaces. Apart from that, if we don't want like any concrete methods to be getting implemented, then we can go for it.
Okay. Okay, fine. So, what is the load factor of array list?
Load factor of array list.
Or hash map?
I think Hashmap it's 75%.
So, what does it mean?
It's basically the way it spreads data like sorry, it's basically its way it increased its size when the data is full, like in a release. Suppose if you just consider a release, then in that case we are like, obviously the default size of the array list would be some, I don't know exactly the number, but suppose I just consider it as a 10, then by how much percent it's going to increase the size when the size is full.
Okay. Okay. Fine. What are the benefit of concurrent hash map?
Concurrent hash map is thread safe, basically because like we can make a hash map also thread safe by doing the synchronized hash map. But there is an advantage over it, like the performance, because if we make hash map as synchronized, it will log the complete object. But if we make the if we use the concurrent hash map, it will not log the complete object. It will just, it has that internal strip blocking techniques which will improve the performance when we're operating on concurrent hash map.
Okay. How we can create an immutable class?
So we should first like stop it from extending, like using, we can declare the class as final, or we can make the constructor as private, so it will not extend. Apart from that, we should not all the we can say that member variables, we can make them as private. Will not give a public access to it. The setters method should not be there, so that outside world should not be able to manipulate those values. We should always allow the initialization of all the non like variables through constructor, and while getting it also, we should not return the uh, exact variable. Instead of that, we can create a copy of it and then return it.
Okay. What is the difference between finally and finalize.
Finally and finalize. Okay. Finally is final block we use in exception handlings. So basically, if we want to execute some code, if we get the exception or if we don't get the exception, that we write in a finally, like like closing the connection or closing the files or clearing some cache or like that. Uh, in finalize is when we like normally the garbage collection will be happening from by JVM itself, but if we want to explicitly let know JVM to do a garbage collection, then we can like finalize.
Yep, fine. What is auto closable interface?
Auto.
Closable interface. Auto closable interface.
I'm not aware of this. Okay.
Okay. What are the reason of memory leak?
Okay, so like the open objects, like the objects which we are not using but still are not, like assigned to went for garbage collection, like those are not assigned as null. Those objects, the data connections, open data connections or open files, those might leak and like excessive data into the hash maps and which we are not clearing. So those things might cause the memory leakages.
Mhm. Okay. What is volatile keyword?
Okay, so volatile keyword is it can like ensure that the reads and writes are happening into the main memory instead of the temporary stack or something, because most in multi-threading what happens is the like if the multiple threads are accessing, then there might be a possibility where the complete initialization of that object is not there, but still as it's not volatile or it's not getting read from the main memory, we might see that it's getting happened and like that. So in that case, I think the volatile keyword is useful, that it ensures that the read and writes are happening on the main memory.
Mhm. Okay. Which design pattern you have worked on for Java?
Design pattern I worked on singleton, factory.
Mhm.
Uh, Apart from that, strategy, builder.
So what is builder design pattern?
Builder design pattern just provides we representative way to create an object of any class. Apart from that, like if we just say that we like obviously that we can do through constructor also, but there is a flexibility of initializing, the limited like the number of variables which we want. Like suppose if my constructor is suppose a class which is having like four variables, and if I want to initialize those all variables, that I can do through constructor also and create an object. But builders patterns I think give us an additional option of initializing the number of variables which we want. It's not like mandatory that we have to set all the variables and initialize the class. That is other.
Mhm. What is solid principle?
Solid principles. So basically, like these are the principles which are like suggested to do a good coding and like follow some principles in the coding. So those are like single responsive principle or interface segregation
Mhm.
and
L is for
sorry.
L stand for
L,
SOLID.
single
So S
response.
is for single responsibility. O is open close.
Yeah,
L is,
open close. Yeah, and L stand for Liskov principle.
Mhm. Okay. Okay. Fine.
Hmm.
Moving to next. So in Spring,
Hmm.
okay, what are the scopes of a Spring Bean?
Spring Bean scopes are singleton, prototype, request, session, and global session.
Right. What is the use of @qualifier annotation?
The use of qualifier annotation is, suppose we have an interface and there are like multiple implementation class of it, but when we are like auto wiring that using the interface, and we want to be, obviously there will be ambiguity like which exactly implementation class object should be initialized here. So in that case we add a qualifier and let know that this implementation class object must be injected into this interface step.
Okay. Suppose I want to develop a REST API. Okay, from scratch. Okay. Okay, that API will just return, for example, list of employee, for example. So what are the steps from the starting?
List of employees. Okay. So first we have to create a Spring project that we can do through the like Spring STS or anything. We can select a Spring Boot project and we can implement it. We should add web dependencies. Apart from that, we can add our database dependencies. Like if we are using, like if we want to go for Hibernate or GP, we can add the JPA starter and Hibernate starter for that. And MySQL dependency. Apart from that, okay, so then let's start with the coding. So we have to first create a controller, REST controller. We have to define a mapping of that controller, like a version we can add like v1 at the request mapping v1. Then we can add our methods, like the first method which you said is get a list of employees. So we can add the get method, get mapping there. And maybe request mapping should be like / employees, and then in that method we can, first thing in controller we can auto wire the service class. In service, then we should call the get employee of the service class, and whatever, if we want to do some operation, but I think most probably we don't do it in get calls, but I'm just okay. So in service class we can auto wire the repository. I'm just considering the JP repository right now. So we can auto wire the JP repository, and we can invoke the JP repository to find all employees.
Okay.
And then we can return the list of employees to controller.
What is the use of actuator?
Actuator is useful to check the health of the services in any environment. And production, most probably when we want to know what is the CPU utilization, what are the services that are up and are slow and all the stuff, we can check using actuator.
What's the difference between constructor and setter injection?
And the setter injection. Constructor injection is the injection like we can annotate the constructor using auto wire, and when we basically when we create a object of it, that time we invoke the constructor. So obviously that time this is the constructor injection. The setter injection, when we add annotation auto wire at the setter level.
Okay. In Spring Boot, how we read the properties from property file?
In Spring Boot, we can read it using @value annotation.
Okay, fine. In Java 8, what is consumer interface?
What is consumer interface? Okay.
Consumer predicates.
Okay, so consumer interface. Okay, so these are all functional interfaces, and predicate is interface which takes the input and returns the boolean value, execute and returns the boolean, and the consumer is the one which takes the input but does not return any. It doesn't have any return type involved.
Right. What is the use of method reference?
Method reference. Okay. So basically, normally how we refer the method is like creating an object and then dot the method. I think the method reference, which is a double colon operator, which is introduced in Java 8, it's for referring the method. Like if I have like runnable.run, so normally we create object of runnable and then run. So we can just write runnable double colon and then run. So it's like referring the method from the class, particular class.
Okay. Since Java 8, there has been some changes in Hashmap, in the internal of Hashmap. What is that?
So basically, I think the way okay, so the way Hashmap internally works is like suppose if a Hashmap finds a safe index again, like the mod of the data which we keep based on the key whatever mod we got on that list, Hashmap puts the data key value. But if the mod is same for multiple, multiple keys, then it adds a linked list to it. So I think that has been changed to binary tree so that the searching will be login and login now. It will not be the order of n. The time complexity will be reduced of searching the element.
Okay, fine. In database, what is indexing?
Indexing is like indexing helps to increase the performance while getting the data. Like ideally, if we have a huge number of data, it takes time to query those data and to search a particular ID from that data. So I think indexing basically improves the performance of that searches.
So, how many types of indexings are there?
I'm not sure about the indexes types and all, but I know that on the primary key, normally the indexing is default, or database already does it. But we can, if we want to create a indexing based on the other columns, we can create. I have not done it like practically, but I just have information about it.
Okay, fine, right. So, while writing SQL queries, so what are the best practice so that the performance should not be degraded? General practice.
Okay, so one is the one where like we have like indexing and all. I think that's the one which increase the performance. Apart from that, I think the query should. Sorry.
Yeah, you're writing a complex query. In that context, you have to think.
Okay.
Not a simple select.
Like how we write in Java, normally we just like loops the data and everything. So I think that maybe we can make the optimizable queries and optimizable looping of the data.
Okay, so should we avoid looping or should use loops?
I think we should not. We can obviously there are maybe many instances where we have to use, there are no options, but at least we can optimize that. Instead of go for n square looping, we can optimize it to n, or because it's a database, so I think we can use some extra memory to store the data instead of looping and all.
You know what is view? Views in database views.
I mean, I don't have that much knowledge about it. I just know some basic queries and all. I mean, that much interaction didn't happen till now.
Okay. So, have you also worked on microservices?
Yeah.
Okay. So, in microservices, what are the challenge we get while development?
What are the challenge we get? Okay. The one where like we consume multiple services, so there might be time where the other service is down and it's taking time to respond. I think that's where we are the consumer service don't know what's happening basically, and then we get the timeouts and everything. I think that's the one issue. Apart from that, like in microservices, we deploy it independently, which is a good part. but it's like sometimes different teams are working, and the sync up between those teams is a little bit, I think, trickier.
Okay.
Yeah, otherwise I think it's advantageous.
So what is the benefit of microservice?
Yeah, so basically, then again, like it's not like language dependable. We whatever team is working on, using whichever language, it's fine. We can communicate with that service. Apart from that, it's individual deployable. Like if one service goes down, it will not affect the other service. And I think using the circuit breakers and all, we can handle those. We can say that the failure of the other services also.
Okay, fine. What is the role of API gateway?
API gateway is also kind of a service which we can invoke before going to the actual service. Like we can in our project right now we are using it for authorizations. We can do it filtering over there before reaching to our server.
Okay. What is circuit breaker?
Circuit breaker, it's like used for, like, suppose it's some other service or third party service we're accessing and it's taking longer time or it's failing. So we should not be like how much time we can allow user to just wait. So we can maybe throw some default, we can return some default response to user if the service is taking time. To handle that, we use circuit breaker.
Okay, fine. And how the two service communicate with each other?
There are multiple clients to do this, like Thin client or HTTP, HTTP client, or you can go for a web client.
So what's the difference between these two? Which one is synchronous and which one is asynchronous?
I think the web client is synchronous one.
Okay, so have you seen or worked on any messaging service, like any messaging service, Kafka, RabbitMQ, MQ?
No, not like that, but we have like AWS provided SQS. So that I just know that in project it has, but not completely worked on it.
Okay. So for static website hosting, what we can use in AWS?
Static website hosting. We can go for Lambdas.
Oh, Lambda, no. We should go for S3.
Okay, so, sorry, yeah, correct. The data, yeah, static.
So have you done any certificate on AWS?
Yeah, the developers.